Just release the memo. Oh, yeah. Don't worry. 100%.
That was President Trump telling Georgia Republican Jeff Duncan that he will 100% release the classified memo, which allegedly reveals surveillance abuses at the Justice Department. Now, the president has 4 days left to decide if the memo will be made public. And White House Chief of Staff John Kelly says it will be unveiled, quote, pretty quick. But the intelligence community is fighting pretty hard to block its release. The FBI issuing a statement saying, quote, as expressed during our initial review, we have grave concerns about material omissions of fact that fundamentally impact the memo's accuracy. Joining me right now is former Deputy Assistant to George W. Bush, Brad Blakeman, along with radio talk show host Ethan Bearman. Good to see you both. Brad, I'm going to start with you. You know, maybe it's the cynic in me, but I saw this note from the FBI, and the first thing I thought was, well, you know, if this makes them look really bad, and we've heard that it probably will, is this an attempt for them to, as I said, going into commercial CYA, in other words, cover themselves up here before things get too bad for them?
Look, it's certainly a possibility. We know that senior officials within the FBI were let go because of bias. There's so much information that's been leaked about this memo. It's about time it comes out. And by the way, the president's between a rock and a hard place. Can you imagine if he came out and said, you know what? I'm not releasing the memo. The left would go crazy. Why is the president not releasing the information? So I think it's about time that the information comes out. Here's the problem. We have to have people out there to explain what the memo means. On its face, it's not going to mean much to the public. We need it explained to us.
Mm-hmm. Ethan, Brad makes a good point. I mean, his back's up against the wall here, because even if he said, I'm not going to release it, you know what y'all'd say then.
Well, here's the deal, though. I mean, so I think Brad, first off, misrepresented senior FBI officials being let go for bias. I don't believe that that's the case, and it hasn't been made public.
That's true. Why don't you read their text?
Importantly here,
that has been proven.
No, that is not McCabe, and that is not the case, Brad. So nice try on the text
I
between
believe
two agents
he's talking
who got
about
removed
Peter
from the
Strzok.
case.
Right.
And they got
Lisa
removed from the
Page.
case, but those aren't understood. So in the case of the memo, though, here's the deal. First off, we have a partisan memo that is being released, which is why it was written and only approved by the Republicans. They're not releasing the Democrats' memo. If you're going to release the memo and you care about truth and openness, you have to release the Democrats' memo. And President Trump, if he's going to release this, must declassify to the best that he can some of the underlying information, which will remove the fact that the FBI says we have material omissions of fact. Well, if that's the case, release the facts behind it. Then we can trust what we're seeing. But without releasing the underlying facts or releasing the Democrats' memo, it's a partisan memo.
I think you can't do that, though, right? I mean, the concern here is
he has the rights.
you're
The president can
sacrificing
declassify anything.
The intelligence community. If you declassify, you can't just go around declassifying. Come on, Brad, you know
President has that power.
Explain to Ethan.
Here's the deal. The president is deferring to an equal and co-equal branch of government, the legislative body. They want to release the information. The president can either stop it, he can wait 5 days, or he can approve it. In my world, I would like the president to wait 5 days and then defer to the legislative branch. Now, I also believe that the Democratic memo should be released once it's scrubbed. I think that they have an opportunity to opine on what the Republican memo says. But the main thing is, this president is for releasing information to the American people. What we need to do, again, is have it explained to us so we understand the context of and the content of the memo.
I guess the real concern here, and this is what we keep going back to, and this is what Americans want answered, Ethan, is did the FBI use political bias to influence its going after Carter Page? To get a FISA warrant, did it say, okay, well, we've got this opposition research that was put together by Fusion GPS on behalf of the Democrats, and we're combing through this thing, and it's serious enough that we think that there's some real Russian scandal here, and they used that to then go after a rival?
Yeah, I mean, look, as an American citizen, I think all three of us are in complete agreement on the fact if there are actual abuses by members of the intelligence community or the FBI law enforcement community, they must be held to account. And structurally, we have to fix things that allow that to happen. There is no question we agree on that.
Good.
The question here becomes, Do we go after agents because they have shared a political opinion in a text? And do we politicize whenever a political figure is one of the targets of an FBI or a CIA investigation, any intelligence community or law enforcement investigation? We have to be careful of over-politicizing if that's not actually the case. So I agree, we must get to the bottom of what's actually going on. I agree that those two agents needed to be pulled off the investigation right away. The question becomes, is it political in nature? Are we over-politicizing this? And that's what we must be very careful of in this case.
You know, and separately, in terms of McCabe, I mean, a lot of ethics questions there being raised as to whether or not he didn't move forward as aggressively as he should have.
Because his wife was a candidate.
His wife was getting money, right, from you know, Clinton associates. I mean, that in and of itself, to me, you know, the perception of the conflict of interest is a very serious thing. And even if you said, no, you know, no conflict in our house, if you have the perception, you need to excuse yourself, period. And he didn't. And it's going to come back to haunt him. It already has. Brad and Ethan, thank you so much. Good to see you guys.
Pleasure.
President Trump calling for both sides.